So this video is inspired by one singular TikTok that I saw.
I don't want another romance book with a shadow daddy or an alpha male. I want pathetic, yearning men. I want the pining, the languishing, the torturous, unrequited love. I want longing.
Girl, me too. Okay, me too. I'm so over the shadow daddies, the alpha males. I'm so done with it. Decided, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's make a whole video explaining why the shadow daddy alpha male stuff in books is just, we're done with it. So if you go, on Bookstagram, Booktok, whatever it is, you look up shadow daddy, you're gonna get all kinds of women on there screaming about some new popular book that has a very dark, mysterious man. Okay,
Mom, what's a shadow daddy?
most popular, of course, being the ACOTAR series with Rhysand, and then Fourth Wing with Xaden.
Xaden Ryerson, wing leader of the Fourth Wing.
A lot of these popular characters will manipulate shadows or have some type of dark, mysterious power, manipulate dark and light, or have some type of just slight magical power. There really is no one definition. It generally is just kind of the dark, mysterious, broody male. And lately what's been taking over the Booktok world particularly is these AI edits. You gotta fire up. Crazy is when you look at them, they all look the fucking same. They all look absolutely identical. Ones of Xaden and Rhysand, they're like, you put them side by side, you wouldn't even know the difference. They look the same. They have dark hair, usually tatted, somewhat tan, or even arguably racially ambiguous, which I feel like comes with its own kind of problems. Very chiseled jawline, extremely ripped. Okay, 0% body fat, extremely ripped. Children aren't even exempt. Okay, series written about 17-year-old boys had the same thing done.
You son, I got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. Now I ain't saying she a gold digger.
They're supposed to be children. That's not a problem at all. We really can't talk about this subject of the dark and mysterious male without mentioning probably what I would consider maybe one of the OGs of this. That probably is what started this hyperfixation. Of course, it's Edward Cullen. Hello. And even though I'm annoyed with this trope, I'm not even exempt to this, okay? Absolutely was a twihard back in the day, okay? So in comes Edward. He is the mysterious, tall, lanky protector type, right? Actually, I feel like in book one, when you're introduced to him, he has this aura of confusion, but also intrigue from him. He's clearly very handsome. And this allure and mysteriousness totally worked, right? Edward was it. Grew up in the mid to late 2000s. You'll remember, it was a cultural phenomenon. Women and young girls particularly kind of consumed this media because it was YA. The teens particularly were super into Twilight, right? Teens and adult women alike. It literally grasped almost everyone in some way. The interesting part I think about Edward and his character. Robert Pattinson, of course, if you look at him, he's beautiful. It's not as if he's not a gorgeous person. What was always so interesting was the love triangle dynamic that was so popular in the 2000s. And putting him next to someone like Taylor Lautner, I feel is a really interesting choice. That really did, I feel set us up for this weird hierarchy of this alpha male, dark and mysterious man being better than your more simpy sunshiny boys. But Taylor Lautner was. He was the sunshiny boy next door. He's the one that made sense, right? And objectively, if you look at them two, let's just be honest, Taylor Lautner is the more conventionally attractive one. Let's just be real. He is. He is tan. He is ripped. Okay, Edward is also fit, but he's more lanky and awkward. Isma too. Jacob absolutely was, at least on conventional standards, met everything as far as attractiveness goes. Whereas Jacob was just too good, and God forbid that, right? Jacob made too much sense and was too good, and women don't want things that make sense and are too good. And women want the complicated, dark, moody, morally gray one because that's just too easy of a life for a not like the other girl like Bella is. And while I think that was cute at a time, okay, that was cute at a time, that's time's over. Okay, I'm just kind of over that at this point. Edward types had their time in the 2000s, but I feel like it's just not totally stopped. If anything, it's just kind of reached its like final boss, like Edward to Xaden. Let's talk about the appeal of the morally gray character. And something about the moral grayness of men is something that really is still a huge compelling factor in the romance literature. Like, it truly is. And for some reason, doesn't tend to hit the same with women for whatever reason. Because I have noticed there's more authors now I feel like are more playing with the morally gray female characters too. Now, probably more than ever, how women and men aren't perceived the same way in that. But the morally gray men, oh, that is wildly popular on the internet.
Burn the witch!
I know a spell to summon big booty Latinas.
Release the witch!
This is sort of like a box you have to check to be considered a dark and moody, mysterious male. Like, this is just part of the initiation ceremony. Like, are you morally gray? You have to be to qualify, okay? Right? Like, there was a time in media where, you know, things were just very good versus evil. Like, they were all the rage. That's what people wanted to hear. They wanted good and bad characters. Simple, easy to understand. I think with time, people in media, like movies and TV and books, you start seeing stories of people who are more complicated, right? People who make mistakes, sometimes even terrible things, because, well, that's more realistic, right? Like, and generally, I think it's a good thing, you know, that we have a little bit more realism in our stories and have more complicated characters, because I think that makes media so much more fun and interesting. Morally gray or morally questionable men, I can see the appeal because a lot of my favorite book boyfriends absolutely are morally gray. Just having a conversation on my TikTok the other day with my favorite Ice Planet Barbarian character, Beck, who made lots of morally questionable decisions throughout, but when he had his redemption, it was so amazing and he became my number one barbarian. Okay, like, something about it was just so compelling to me. I loved it. Reformed villains are actually like my number one. Like, that is one of my favorites. My top book boyfriend ever, Deos, right here, was the one who was the villain in the first book. But then in his book, in the second book, he's the reformed villain. And I live for that trope. Maybe it's something about human nature. We just like to see people succeed and grow. It feels nice to see people change. Perfect example of this, which also is basically like a Twilight copy, is, of course, the Vampire Diaries. You have with Vampire Diaries, they all kind of play with some moral grayness in all of the characters. The most kind of stark example, of course, is with Damon and Stefan. Stefan being much more of the Jacob-like character, which is more sunshiny and boy next door and is more interested in morality and goodness. And then you have Damon, on the other hand, who is the sexy, mysterious, mischievous one, right? He makes lots of really bad and even straight out evil decisions. I would even argue in the TBD fandom, probably Damon love is a little bit heavier than Stefan love at this point. That's just my opinion. Again, he's kind of the morally gray one, and women go crazy for that. Like, it works. It just does. There's something appealing to that. Morally gray male definitely did not stop in this early 2000s vampire craze. It absolutely didn't. It's still just massively as popular because that's exactly what's happening with these shadow daddies. You know, unrealistic male characters are just kind of the pinnacle to the romance book genre, like it just is. I don't think it's exactly fair, you know, to say that this dark and mysterious, moody male is all that women want. Anything, I feel like it's actually very divisive, despite what the media and what one might think, okay? Just like this TikTok video that inspired this entire video I'm making, there are a lot of women who don't want shadow daddies and alpha males, okay? We don't want that. Like me, for example, we like the more sunshiny neighbor boy, okay? And to point out is, like, why can't the sunshiny neighbor boy still be a masculine type? Thing about being a sunshiny, you know, golden retriever, that doesn't mean you're not masculine. I feel like the dark and mysterious plays into the masculine so much, it almost kind of feels like they're trying to do like a mask and simp, like mask versus simp situation, when that's not true. Like, really, it's just kind of two different personalities. That has really nothing to do with, in my opinion, with the perceived masculinity of either kind of archetypes. I feel like this kind of plays into this idea that, like, women always go for the bad boy, you know, the good guys never win type of mentality, when that's just not true. Lots of women who very much want and desire your more pining, yearning, soft men. Like, that has been something women have also loved for a very long time. Actually, I think that have stood the test of time way more than the dark and moody and mysterious thing that kind of, I feel like, was more and more so in the 2000s Edward Cullen craze. I genuinely do, okay? Because let's talk about our main girl, Jane Austen, okay? That's arguably one of the most prolific, classic literary masterpieces of all time, Pride and Prejudice. There's not even kissing in Pride and Prejudice, not in the book. How Jane Austen wrote about romance was all about soft touches, small things that Mr. Darcy did to win over Lizzie's heart. That was what the premise of the book was, because obviously she wrote that in hundreds. She couldn't write anything heavy, like physical things in it. Like she couldn't do that. Like she could not literally do that. She wasn't allowed. So established literally one of the greatest romance books of all time, based off of the softness and gentle touch and gentle love. That's literally what she did. And ate it up and still have for literal how long? Like, this works. It does. It's not true that women just purely like the shadow daddies. Okay, it may be something. Obviously, there's something to it. There's a reason why Fourth Wing and Akatar have sold the way it has. But some of the most classic romance books of all time do not have these type of characters. They'll have complex characters, but with men that are nice and light. Normal, not dark and moody and mysterious, not shadow daddies. They're sunshiny, they're fun. You know, like, women like that too. And Jane Austen's a perfect example of that, because like Mr. Darcy, for example, absolutely was not a morally upstanding person necessarily, not in, at least in that society's view. Literally at the beginning, it tells you that nobody liked him because they found him to be a prideful person and be full of himself. Did things that piss Lizzie off all the time. This back and forth of having a lot of misunderstandings about each other and who they are and their intentions. And that actually went both ways. Not only did she write a complex man, she also wrote a very complex female. And it worked. And it worked. And none of it had to do this weird, dark, mysterious. She wrote morally gray men without having to make them a shadow daddy, dark, mysterious, you know, alpha male. Again, a lot of women really like yearning and softness and brightness. A lot of us do. I promise we do. I want to point out, I think it's also interesting. I'm a person who reads a lot of plus size romances. And some of this, I do think we need to establish that women do perpetuate a lot of this. Like, it's not, yes, do I think men and the way that masculinity has been shaped by men, patriarchy is kind of at the top of all of what has influenced how, you know, gender roles and dynamics have been established throughout all of human history. But women tend to be the biggest perpetuator of it, ironically. As a person who reads a lot of plus size romances, at least like a good 9 out of 10 of the times, you're going to have this very soft and sweet plus size woman, okay? And then this super masculine male. I thought it was interesting as to why the plus size romances were always like that. I feel like as plus size women, and I know at least me and a lot of other plus size women in my own life, you know, we honestly wouldn't really find that type of stuff super attractive. They're probably trying to appeal to like, hey, plus size women can pull, okay? Plus size women can pull, which I agree. You can, you know, plus size women can pull whoever they want. Just like, why does it always have to be that like, I just think actually if anybody could appreciate a soft, plush man, a man who yearns, a man who is gentle and kind, it would be a plus size woman. Because we had to deal with a lot of unkindness, and that's meant a lot of hardness from other people. And I'll be honest, me, like, especially me being plus size, I don't want this like hyper masculine. Like, that is not what I want. Body, literally, like, I don't even want to touch it. I don't even want to touch hardness. I want softness. I want a man with a belly. And it's so hard to find like books with plus size MMCs. Like plus size men. Where are the plus size men? I think it's because we as women have pushed so much hyper masculinity in the book space. We've just kind of forgotten that like there's soft big men out there too that can be just as dreamy. Like, we need somebody to write more of those. I'm begging y'all to write more of those. Okay, authors, write more male plus size MMCs. Okay, write more yearning MMCs. This is what we want. This is what we want. We gotta do something different.